Okay. 6:30 on Monday, June the 27th. And this is the regular meeting of the Municipal Council of the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal for the month of June. So I've called the meeting to order. The next item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Deputy Mayor Deschamps, I think you have that motion.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Thank you very much. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor John Hunter. The Municipal Council approves the agenda as presented.
Thank you very much. Vote to call the question. Those in favor? Aye. Motion is carried. So before proceeding further to the disclosures, I just want to acknowledge the fact that we have three visitors in our gallery tonight and welcome them to the meeting. I'll just check with the clerk. Deputy Clerk, I don't think there's anybody on Zoom, and I don't know if we're still doing Zoom or not. Okay, so it is available.
Till the end of July.
Until the end of July. Okay. So that concludes that welcoming, and so now I'm at item number 3 on the agenda, which is the disclosure of pecuniary interest, and if so, the general nature thereof. Does anyone have an interest to declare here this evening?
Not by me.
Not here.
Chair notes no disclosures of pecuniary interest, and the minutes will reflect that. Item number 4 on the agenda is delegations and presentations. We have none this evening. So that brings me to item number 5 on the agenda, which is the approval of minutes of previous council meetings. And we've had 3. The first is the regular council meeting of May the 24th. Councillor Hunter, I think you have that motion.
Myself, my Deputy Mayor Deschamps, Municipal Council received and approved the minutes of the regular council meeting dated May 24th, 2022.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll just call to see if there are any errors or omissions with these minutes. We'll deal with business arising at the next item on the agenda. So are there any errors or omissions? Hearing none, I'm about to call the question. Those in favor? Motion is carried. The next meeting was May the 30th. Councillor Dillabaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cameron that the Municipality Council received and approves the minutes of special tri-council meeting dated May 30th, 2022.
And this was the joint meeting of the 3 councils of Prescott, Augusta, and Edwardsburg Cardinal on May the 30th. Are there any errors or omissions in these minutes? And I understand that these minutes have already been received and approved by the other 2 councils, so we will be the 3rd. If there are no errors or omissions and no comments, well, we'll deal with business arising later. I'm going to call the question to receive and approve. Those in favor? Aye. Motion is carried. And then the last one was the special council meeting of June the 13th. Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dillabaugh, that Municipal Council receives and approves the minutes of the special council meeting dated June 13th, 2022.
Thank you very much. And this was our special council meeting that was held after the meeting on, after the meeting on May the 30th. And are there any errors or omissions in these minutes? Hearing none, I'm about to call the question on these minutes. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. And so now I'm at item number 6 on the agenda, which is business arising from any of the issues or comments made in any of those 3 sets of minutes. Does anyone have any business arising? Okay, hearing none, seeing no hands, about to proceed. We're going now to item number 7 on the agenda, which is dealing with the committee minute meetings. These are various meetings of our committees that were held during the month. And so they come to council for receipt and approval. And so the first one is the Public Library Board meeting of April the 26th. Councillor Cameron is our representative on the board. Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dillabaugh, that municipal council receives the minutes of the Public Library Board meeting dated April 26, 2022.
Thank you very much. So those minutes are up for approval. Does anyone have any questions, concerns, or issues arising from these minutes, or any questions for Councillor Cameron? Okay, hearing none, I'm about to call the question. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. So now I'm moving then to the minutes of the Port Management Committee that was held on May the 18th. Councillor Hunter, I think you have that motion.
Moved by myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the municipal council receives the minutes of the Port Management Committee dated May 18th, 2022.
Right, so council receives these minutes. The Port Management Committee is responsible for approving them, which they will do at their next Port Management Committee meeting. So are there any questions arising from this set of minutes? Hearing none, about to call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Now I'm going to the item number 7C, which is the Committee of the Whole meeting, Community Development, which was held on June the 6th. Deputy Mayor Deschamps.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that municipal council receives and approves the minutes of the Committee of the Whole Community Development meeting dated June the 6th, 2022.
Thank you very much. Those minutes are up for approval. Any questions, discussions? Seeing none, I'm about to call the question. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And just for the information of those folks in the gallery, all members of council are members of these committees. So we sit on all of these various committee meetings. And so we're pretty familiar, actually totally familiar with what was conducted at those meetings. So the minutes go past very briskly. So now I'm at item number 7D, which is the combined Committee of the Whole Administration, Finance, Public Works, Environmental Services and Facilities meeting of June the 20th. Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dillabaugh, that municipal council receives and approves the minutes of the combined Committee of the Whole Administration and Finance / Public Works, Environmental Services and Facilities meeting dated June 20th, 2022.
Thank you very much. Those minutes are up for discussion. Any questions? Hearing none. No questions, no issues, no hands up. About to call the question on the motion before the chair. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Right, now that takes us then to item number 8 on the agenda, which is the action and information items coming from the committees. So these basically recommendations that are coming out of those committee meetings. And the first is, where are we here? The first is an update to the 2022 Public Sector Accounting Board addendum. And Deputy Mayor Deschamps, I think you have that motion.
I do, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that the municipal council adopt the updated 2022 PSAB budget addendum report, which meets the requirements of the Ontario Regulation 284/09, as recommended by the combined Committee of the Whole Administration and Finance, Public Works, Environmental Services and Facilities.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to call the question on this motion. This motion will update the report, which reconciles the Public Sector Accounting Board standard to the standard which we use when we're doing budgeting. And we use basically cash in, cash out revenue and expenses. And the Public Sector Accounting Board has a different set of standards that they use, and they always want our budget squared with their new standards. And later on in our agenda, we'll be revising our 2022 budget slightly to reflect the information that came forward after the budget was struck. So this is the motion to update the PSAB addendum. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And then item number 8B is related to HFI Pyrotechnics Inc., the Hands Road Safety concerns. Deputy Mayor Dillabaugh, excuse me, Councillor Dillabaugh. Gave him a promotion.
Don't know what. Don't know what to say. Moved by myself and seconded by John Hunter. That the municipality council accept option 1, direct staff to reduce the speed limit on Hands Road to 40 kilometers an hour, install signage, install pedestrian crossing zones. Create a pedestrian crossing by delineating an area and painted hash marks on the road surface, install speed bumps, clear roads, side brush on the south, east, and west side of the township road allowance near the facility at a cost of approximately $1,400 plus HST, township covering 100% of the cost, as recommended by the combined committee of the whole, administration and finance, public works, environmental service, and facilities.
Thank you very much. The motion is on the floor. Discussion, if any? Hearing none. I vote to call the question. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And I'm going to item number 8C, which relates to port investments. Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hunter, that municipal council direct the port general manager to move the total amount of the Port of Johnstown's Royal Bank Trust account number 100-129-5 into a non-redeemable GIC for a 12-month period and with a rate of 4% or best rate available, as recommended by the Port Management Committee.
Okay, thank you very much. Any discussion here? There's no discussion, but to call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. This is just a slight change of investment vehicle, protecting the assets, cash assets of the port. Now I'm at item number 8D, which relates to the interim control bylaw planning study. Deputy Mayor Deschamps.
Again, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that municipal council received the interim control bylaw 2021-33 planning study, in which the study recommends that the township carry forward with no further amendments to the official plan as they relate to the subject lands, except as proposed in the draft zoning bylaw, as recommended by the committee of the whole, community development.
Thank you very much. And we have the planners report to support our interim control bylaw, and we relied on that and planners support to put this interim control bylaw in place until the zoning bylaw, which is going to come forward tonight, is passed. So that's the motion before the floor. Those in favor? Motion is carried. All right, Al, just give me a minute. So now I'm proceeding to item number 9, which is the acceptance of the correspondence. And Councillor Hunter, I think you have that.
Moved by myself, seconded by Deputy Mayor Deschamps. The municipal council receives correspondence listed for the following dates previously circulated: June 1st, 2022, June 8th, 2022, June 16th, 2022, and June 22nd, 2022.
Thank you very much. All right, I'll just say for the benefit of the gallery, all correspondence received to the township addressed to the mayor and council. It's collated and put together in these packages, and we receive these packages on a weekly basis. Any individual wishing to bring something forward from the packages, quite free to do so. So we have 4 packages that have been circulated during the month. Those in favor? Motion is carried. And then item number 10 on the agenda is the approval of the municipal disbursements. And Councillor Dillabaugh, I think you have that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Cameron that the municipality council approves payments of municipality invoices circulated and dated as follows. Reported date May 25th, 2022 -70, $339. Reported date May 30th, 2022 -76, amount of $172,687.53. Recorded dated May 31st, 2022 -77, amount of $229,803.21. Recorded date June 9th, 2022 -82, amount of $145,000. Recorded date June 14th, 2022 -83, amount $184,820.92. Reported dated June 16th, 2022 -84 for the amount of $235,935.68. Reported dated June 22nd, 2022 -87 for the amount of $187,052.68 for a total of $1,155,639.02.
Thank you very much. So these disbursement sheets are circulated to council on the Friday before this meeting, and council has opportunity to review them and speak to staff anytime during the day Monday, or to raise issues here. Are there any issues arising from these disbursement sheets? Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's nothing to do really with the disbursement sheets. I wonder just through you to our facilities manager, Mr. Spencer, whether or not on page 87, I see there was some dock repairs. I'm just curious as to what dock repairs those would be.
Page 87.
Yeah, I believe it was about $500.
Oh, that was for our, through the chair to Coach Cameron, that was for one of the black
Flotation
canisters that were damaged last year.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Any other questions before I call a question on the disbursement sheet? Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you. It's going to be a minute here. I'm going to be now moving to item number 11 on the agenda, which is to bring forward various bylaws, some of which we've been working with on a long period, and others which are coming forward as a result of work during the past month. So the very first one is 11A, which is the comprehensive zoning bylaw. And Deputy Mayor Deschamps, I think you have that motion. And if you can't find it, neither could I. It's a bylaw to regulate.
Correct. It would be lead to introduce a bylaw to regulate the use of lands, the character.
So that is the correct one.
That is
Yeah.
the correct wording.
I didn't recognize it either.
Yeah, I didn't. I thought it was actually the one after this. Okay, so moved by myself and seconded by Councillor John Hunter that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to regulate the use of lands and the character, location, and the use of buildings and structures in the township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, and this shall constitute a first and second reading thereof.
Okay, the bylaw itself, of course, is quite a comprehensive zoning bylaw. We've been working on it for the better part actually of 24 months. And so now it's coming up for first and second reading. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, about to call the question. Those in favor?
Aye.
So the first and second reading receives unanimous approval, and this bylaw can now proceed to third reading, Deputy Mayor.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor John Hunter that a bylaw to regulate the use of lands and the character, location, and the use of buildings and structures in the township of Edwardsburg Cardinal be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2022-37.
Thank you very much. Discussion, if any, on this bylaw? Hearing none, the vote to call the question. Those in favor? Aye. And so the bylaw receives unanimous approval on third reading. And I would be remiss if I didn't first of all thank the staff for the work that they've done on this bylaw over the past number of months. I know that the community development coordinator has been heavily involved here and that it's been a pretty challenging assignment. Also want to acknowledge the work of our planners, Novatech. They've certainly had their hands full over the period of time, especially trying to hold public meetings during the pandemic. And then last of all, I'd like to acknowledge the work of Deputy Mayor Deschamps, who was the chair of the committee that was responsible for bringing this bylaw forward. So thank you to all concerned. And this bylaw will now be in effect as our zoning bylaw for quite a number of years, probably a minimum of 5, more like 8. And in the ordinary procedure, we wouldn't be able to make or to accept amendments to this bylaw for a minimum of 2 years. However, there is a provision in the Municipal Act that if immediately after passing this bylaw, we take advantage of the section in the Municipal Act, which allows ourselves to accept an application for an amendment to this bylaw. And Deputy Mayor will bring that resolution forward now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter. Whereas Council of the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal has passed a new zoning bylaw under Section 34 of the Planning Act, being zoning bylaw number 2022-37, and covering the whole of the township. And whereas Section 34, 10.0.0.2 of the Planning Act allows Council by resolution permit an application or applications to amend the zoning bylaw prior to the 2nd anniversary on the date of which the zoning bylaw was passed. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to Section 10.0.0.2 of the Planning Act, the Council of the Corporation of the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal shall permit all applications to amend the zoning bylaw number 2022-37.
Okay, thank you very much. And I've explained what the purpose of this bylaw is. Is there any discussion with this motion? Hearing none, I'm about to call the question. Those in favor? Motion is carried. Thank you. Okay, now we're at item number 11B on the agenda, which is a resolution to stop up, close, and convey a non-open road allowance. And Deputy Mayor, or excuse me, gosh, there I go again. Councillor Dillabaugh.
He's getting excited. He's getting excited.
Councillor Dillabaugh.
Moved by myself, thank you, Mr. Mayor, moved by myself, and seconded by Councillor Cameron, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to stop up, close, and convey a non-open road allowance being Edward Street, Plan 6 between 2nd Street and 3rd Street. PIN number 68155-0232LT. Edward Street, Plan 6 between 1st Street and 2nd Street. PIN number 68155-0233LT. Edward Street, Plan 6 between Water Street and 1st Street. PIN number 68155-0234LT. At 1st Street, Plan 6 between Part 1, 15R7184 and PR53235. PIN number 68155-0236LT. In the geographic township of Edwardsburg Cardinal, County of Grenville. And it shall constitute the first and second reading thereof.
Thank you very much. And are there any questions or discussion from this motion? Hearing none, I'm about to call a question. Those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so that bylaw receives unanimous approval on first and second reading. So it can proceed to third reading, Councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Cameron that bylaw to introduce bylaw to stop up, close, and convey unopened allowance being Everett Street, Plan 6, between 2nd Street and 3rd Street, pin number 68155-0232 LT. Everett Street, Plan 6, between 1st Street and 2nd Street, pin number 68155-0233 LT. Everett Street, Plan 6, between Water Street and 1st Street, pin number 68155-0234 LT. At 1st Street, Plan 6, between Part 1, 15R7184 and PR 53235. Pin number 681-155-0236 LT in the geographic township of Eversburg, township of Eversburg, Cardinal, County of Grenville, be now read a third time, finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2022-38.
Oh, I'm glad I didn't get that.
Okay, thank you very much. Bylaw is on the floor for third reading. Discussion, if any. Hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you. So now I'm proceeding to bylaw number 11C, which is relates to site plan control approval process and the delegation of authority bylaw. Councillor Hunter.
Myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the remover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to delegate authority to the Chief Administration Office for site plan control approval for the Township of Eversburg, Cardinal, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Okay, so the motion is on the floor for first and second reading. Discussion, if any. Okay, hearing none. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried, and it's carried unanimously. So, Councillor, it can proceed. This bylaw can proceed to third reading.
Moved by myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the bylaw to delegate authority, approval authority to the Chief Administration Office for site plan control approval for the Township of Eversburg, Cardinal, be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and number 2022-39.
Thank you very much. And just before I call the question on third reading, the purpose of this bylaw is to bring the township into compliance with recent provincial legislation, which requires that we delegate the approval authority to the Chief Administrative Officer to sign site plan control agreements now, or site plan control approvals, and sort of takes a bit of power out of the hands of the elected officials, but the procedure that we'll come to will still ensure that this is an open and transparent process as we move through applications for site plan control agreements. So I'm going to call third reading on this bylaw. Those in favor?
I was going to comment on it before you called the question. I'm going to vote against.
I'm going to vote against.
I'm going to vote against. I know I have no choice in the matter, but I still think it's ridiculous.
Are you asking for a recording?
No.
No. Okay. All right. So
Still
this
carries.
won't proceed unanimously. Those in favor? So the vote is 4-1, and so the motion carries and the bylaw receives third reading. Okay. Thank you very much. And item number 11D is a planning fees bylaw to adjust some of the fees in our planning department. And just by way of introduction, I'll say that the Municipal Act requires that we manage our planning department, well, for certain our building department, but also our planning department, in a manner which is designed to be sort of cost neutral to the taxpayer. So we're obligated to set our fees in this planning department with an eye to ensuring that our expenses are balanced with our revenue derived from fees. And so Deputy Mayor Deschamps, I think you have that motion.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to prescribe a tariff for fees for the processing of applications made in respect to planning matters. And this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Thank you very much. And needless to say, the schedule of fees is laid out in the bylaw. So calling the question on first and second reading. Those in favor?
Aye.
And so first and second reading receives unanimous approval. And so the bylaw can proceed to third reading.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that a bylaw to introduce a bylaw to prescribe a tariff of fees for the processing of applications made in respect to planning matters be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2022-40.
Okay, thank you very much. And about to call a question on third reading. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. The next one that I have is a bylaw to regulate the erection, height, and maintenance of boundary fences. Councillor Hunter.
Moved by myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to regulate the erection, height, and maintenance of boundary fences within the township of Edwardspur Cardinal. This shall constitute first and second reading.
Thank you very much. And so this bylaw will apply mainly to the villages and the built-up areas and not be infringing any place upon the line. Is it called the Line Fences Act? I think it's called the Line Fences Act, which applies mostly in the rural agricultural area. So, calling the question, are there any questions with this bylaw? Calling the question on first and second reading. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried unanimously. And Councillor, if you'd proceed.
Moved myself, second by Deputy Mayor Deschamps, that the bylaw to regulate erect, height, and maintenance of boundary fences within the township of Edwardspur Cardinal be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, number 2022-41.
Thank you very much. And calling the question on third reading. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. So now I'm going to item number 11F, which is going to be a bylaw to revise our 2022 budget estimates. So Deputy Mayor Deschamps.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that the mover be granted leave to amend the bylaw to adopt the general government estimates for the sums required during the year. And this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Okay, thank you very much. Discussion, if any, on this bylaw? It's quite seldom that council is required to amend the budget bylaw, but in view of the high pricing that came in on our two major construction projects, which is to say the drainage project in Spencerville and the drainage project in Johnstown, they're way out of line with what our anticipated estimates were. So we're going to adjust our budget to reflect what we've learned since the budget was passed. So calling the question on first and second reading. Those in favor?
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Proceed, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that a bylaw to amend the bylaw to adopt the general government estimates for the sums required during the year be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and number 2022-42.
Thank you very much. And those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried, and I might say that the passage of this bylaw will have no effect on tax rates as we intend to finance this construction by means of debt finance. All right, and so now I'm proceeding to item number 11F on the agenda. We did that. 11G on the agenda, which is the Integrity Commissioner bylaw. Deputy Mayor Deschamps again.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to appoint and establish the position and duties of the Integrity Commissioner in the Township of Edwardspur Cardinal, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Okay, now, just a small point. for the staff. I'm going to take it as a mechanical error and not make an issue of it, but just for the purpose of the actual bylaw, we're establishing the position and the duties of the Integrity Commissioner, I believe. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Mayor. Noted, we will make that.
Just add the ER to the word commission. Okay, so we already have an Integrity Commissioner. We have had for some number of years, I can't remember how many, but every once in a while we go back to that bylaw and make some adjustments, and that's what we're doing here this evening. So this is first and second reading. Those in favor?
Aye.
And that first and second reading receives unanimous approval. You can proceed then.
Do I read it with commission or do I read it as commission?
I think you should read it with the word commissioner.
Shall I correct it then?
I think so.
Yes. Correct. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor John Hunter, that a bylaw to appoint and establish the position and duties of the Integrity Commissioner of the Township of Edwardsburg Cardinal be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2022-43.
Good, thank you very much. And calling the question on third reading. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you. And I'm at 11H, which is a disconnect from work policy. Councillor Hunt.
Move myself, second by Deputy Mayor Disha, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to adopt a disconnect from work policy, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Okay, thank you very much. And again, just by way of introduction for the folks visiting us tonight, again, recent provincial legislation requires that we introduce a policy to adopt a disconnect from work policy. So the staff has prepared this policy. It has gone through the committee stage, and the committee is now bringing it forward as a bylaw. So I'm going to call the question on first and second reading. Those in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. And so you can proceed to third reading, please.
Move myself, second by Deputy Mayor Disha, that a bylaw to adopt disconnect from work policy be now read a third time. Finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2022-44.
Very much. And calling the question on third.
Just a comment
Yes, okay.
before third reading, and I know we went through good discussion at committee level, and I was assured that not necessarily to expect an answer to emails, but it wouldn't necessarily be inappropriate to send them. It was pointed out under communication item 10C that depending upon how you interpret in the actual report 10C, it does allow us, we don't get our packages until Friday at 4 o'clock. To ask questions outside of or when we read them on Friday nights or Saturday nights or Sundays, to still send those emails, but not expect to get answers until Monday. So hearing that, I'm okay with. I struggled with, we don't get the packages until Friday afternoon. It's pretty tough if you work a full day on Monday to have any correspondence back and forth with staff with questions you might have, and doing those during regular work hours. So respecting, staff's work hours 100%. It's just, we still need to be able to ask those questions outside of hours, but not expect answers until working hours. I think that's fair.
Fair enough. And, well, we're not going to question the province that's provided us with the direction. But for the folks in the gallery, I hope you can see that when they say that municipalities are a creature of the province, that's exactly what they mean. We are a creature created by the province, and we take our instruction through the Municipal Act and other legislation where the province requires us to do certain things. So where am I here? You want to comment as well?
Well, I just want to make a comment that was brought up in our discussions at committee. As the deputy mayor said, the contactor did not expect an answer, but it was also brought up by senior staff that for anybody, if it's an emergency or something that deems immediate thing, we shouldn't be sending emails. It should be a direct call to the manager and CAO on phone that it's an emergency, and they will respond to an emergency. Like, it's not, they're shut off on Friday night and something happens. They're not going to respond to ratepayers during the off work hours. Our operations manager or CEO, if it's an emergency that there's a road destruction or something, they will get an answer. But don't send an email and expect that they're going to be checking it every 15 minutes. If it's an emergency, make a telephone call.
Well, the only thing that I would add to your comment is that my feeling is that the call should be made to the CAO, the Chief Administrative Officer of the corporation, and it's up to the Chief Administrative Officer to decide how he wishes to handle the emergency and who he wishes to contact, because it is not the role of council to direct the management to do anything. And so the call should always be, in my opinion, to the Chief Administrative Officer. So, but I think your point is well made. A call is much more certain to receive a response than is a text message that may or may not, and even the Chief Administrative Officer, I'm sure, doesn't have his phone, not checking his text messages every 5 minutes. At least I hope he isn't on the weekends.
Never shuts the ringer on.
All right, so I'm going to call the question on third reading. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you. All right, and so now I'm at item number 11I, which is a bylaw to restrict the rate of speed on Hands Road. And Councillor Dillabaugh, I believe you have that motion or that bylaw.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councilor Hunter, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to restrict the rate of speed for motor vehicles on municipality roadways known as Hands Road. This should constitute the first and second reading thereof.
Okay, thank you very much. And calling the question, those in favor?
Aye.
And the motion receives unanimous approval. You can proceed to third reading.
Mayor, moved by myself, seconded by Councilor Hunter, that the bylaw to restrict the rate of speed for motor vehicle on municipality roadway known as Hands Road be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2022-45.
Okay, thank you very much. And those in favor? Aye. Motion is carried. So staff will proceed to post the applicable signage. And just let me say for the benefit again of the folks in the gallery, HFI Pyrotechnics, which is located on Hands Road, is becoming a very aggressive business. They are in the business of providing pyrotechnics to various military and police forces throughout the world. We've been fortunate to have them in our township for quite a number of years. They've reinvented themselves since they were known as Hands Fireworks. And we're quite pleased. They've increased their workforce, but the point is now that they are in what is called an explosive area or an explosive zone because of the nature of the pyrotechnics that they create. So we're attempting to put some mitigating measures in place that will restrict rate of speed on that road. And also the company has asked us for some mitigating measures to restrict access to that area, which we're examining further as time goes on. So I'm moving now then to 11J, which is a library board member appointment. So Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hunter, that the mover be granted leave to introduce a bylaw to amend bylaw 2018-78 to appoint members of the Cardinal Edwardsburg Cardinal Public Library Board, and this shall constitute first and second reading thereof.
Thank you very much. So these boards are generally appointed in the first couple of months of council, and this is a change because of the resignation. So those in favor, first and second reading, motion is carried. You can proceed to third reading, please.
Thank you. Once again, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Hunter, that a bylaw to amend bylaw 2018-78 to appoint members of the Edwardsburg Cardinal Public Library Board be now read a third time and finally passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2022-46.
Thank you very much. I'm going to call the question on third reading. Those in favor?
Aye.
The motion is carried. And so, Councillor, I would just like you to express our thanks to Pat Tierney, who is resigning after her term on the board. And we want to thank her for her services, and at the same time welcome Paula Kielstra, who will finish out the basis of the rest of this term of council.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I certainly will do that. Pat Tierney has moved from the board to inside the library as a library assistant. So she's quite comfortable with that position, and I will relay that message.
Thank you very much. And so now I'm at item number 12 on the agenda, which is the CAO's administrative update. And so I think what I'm going to do here, I'm going to have the CAO present his update, and then I'll ask Councillor Dillabaugh to bring the motion forward. So we'll do the update first, Mr. CAO.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Activity is busy in the township, and a lot of good news. With respect to page one, the senior management team, just wanted to indicate that the team is registered in an accelerator series program, and that will be focusing on situational awareness and collaboration over the next several months. With respect to building, just wanted to note that on June 9th, South Nation Conservation hosted a contractors meeting for the upcoming transition to the Part 8 septic program that will start in September. I think it was a worthwhile event. There was solid attendance and good discussion from those in attendance. With respect to upcoming meetings, the schedule, I did make an error with respect to Wednesday, June 29th. My thought was it was at 6 p.m., but of note it is at 6:30 p.m. at the Maitland Fire Hall.
Is it 6:30?
The agenda package is indicating 6:30 p.m.
Well, because all previous correspondence was 6 o'clock.
So I believe that I've consistently made that error with respect to the meeting in Prescott was 6 p.m. and I thought that it was a standard 6 p.m. start time, but the agenda is indicating 6:30. So I apologize for that. Under Treasury, just wanted to indicate that the 2021 FIR was filed on June 14th. Once we received the final consolidated financial statements. If you recall, we were waiting for that number from Rideau St. Lawrence. Also, with respect to reports submission, the treasurer has submitted the Safe Restart report that was due by July 29th. On page 2, under facilities and recreation, we're excited that the pool's opened on Saturday, and we started a pretty intense and I anticipate a well-received summer program. So staff training has been completed, and also with respect to that, the Spencerville Arena, the 5-year structural review has been completed, and a full report will be coming to committee and council in August or September. Operations, Public Works, I guess a highlight of note, the roadside weed spraying program through the counties has been completed. Hardtop maintenance, crack sealing on some of our hardtop roads was completed. Of note, Spencerville Drainage Project, upon producing the report, or the anticipated start date was June 28th. It will be delayed until July 4th. We're still awaiting some baseline sampling data to be returned. With respect to our partnership with Ingredion, that work was completed on June 17th, and good reports being received on that work. Page 3 of 4, operations environmental services. So we've had ESA completing the annual electrical inspections at a number of our facilities. We've done the or working on, if we haven't completed already, the spring water main hydrant flushing. And of note, I believe it was last week, with respect to Hydro One upgrading the electrical transformer at the low lift pumping station. Under operations municipal drains, our drainage superintendent is preparing the tender to have the culvert replacement work off of Dobie Road completed. And Robinson Consultants are in the process of preparing the tender for the east branch of the Newport drain. Under page 4, with respect to fire department, just I guess of note, some training evolutions in practice runs with respect to the tanker shuttle accreditation, which will take place on October 15th of this year. That's normally every 5 years we get sort of reaccredited, and it's under the fire prevention section. Just that some collaboration with the Prescott and Augusta fire departments with some firework safety with Canada Day celebrations upcoming on Friday and over the weekend. I guess the final item, just of note, is that we will be participating with the United Counties for the annual exercise as required under the province, and the date set for that exercise is September 13th. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, just open the floor for questions here. If there's any questions of the CAO, I see Deputy Mayor, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have 4. One's a real quick one. The September 13th for the emergency management plan or the combined exercise. Is that a full day exercise?
Through the mayor, that will likely be a 9 to noon at the longest. We're probably looking at about 3 hours.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
would that be the requirement to be here, or is that going to be at United Counties, or is that going to be at a different site?
Through the mayor, won't give out too many details, but it will not be at the United Counties. It will be locally. It will be within our township, our control.
My concern is I'm not driving to Westport and then back to work. That's all. Give somebody else a chance to go and come back to me.
Any other questions?
I got a couple. I've got 3 more.
Councilor?
You can go ahead and get that if you like.
I don't want to steal everybody's questions. Whatever. In reference to Lockmaster subdivision, Edwardsburg Developments is there, trying to finish up the final steps to get that subdivision approved. I think I know the answer to this question before I ask it. Do we know if Edwardsburg Developments actually plans on developing it, or do they plan on selling, or trying to speculate that into a larger development?
Through the mayor, at this stage, I don't have that answer. I haven't had an indication.
Okay.
Directly from Edwardsburg Developments on that.
My 3rd one is through the mayor again to the CAO. Do we have an expected date for the pumper? It said the chassis is on site. They're still waiting on parts. Do we expect that to end up, paying for that this year? Is that gonna come out of budget this year? Is that gonna get whipped over to next year? Or?
Through the mayor, we're just sort of still following up with that timeline with respect to the pump, but I think once that pump is there, it should the final production of that should be relatively quick. So it's a little unknown, but right now we're sort of thinking the fall of this year.
Okay. And my last one, Mr. Mayor, if I may, in seeing the road spraying, it brought back memory of last year and the year before and the year before that, when Victoria Woodhouse had contacted us to see through the rights of way with the pollinator program, that we decided to nominate, or at least try to find some roadways that we could nominate. In seeing the roadways are there, do we ever connect on the wildflower or the pollinator program, or is that just something that it's just sort of we haven't had time to finish up that agreement yet?
Through the mayor, we have not been able to connect as of yet. It's been one of those items that has been sort of at the side, but it is something that we are keeping in mind, and we'll look to try to connect possibly in the fall.
Thank you. That's it for me.
No, sir.
Thank you. I have one duly chair to the CEO. We have 75 permits from the building. Is that all residential homes, or is that a combination industrial, farms, etc.?
Through the mayor, that would be all. That would be residential, industrial, commercial.
Would you have any idea of residential?
Through the mayor, I don't, but July we will. Next month we should have our next quarter report, so you'll have a more fulsome update at that time.
Thank you. Duly chair to the CEO. You said that our Spencerville drainage is going to be postponed until July 4th. Is that going to interrupt the Johnstown drainage project starting July 13th?
Through the mayor, I'm anticipating that should not impact that.
Thank you very much.
Other questions, Councillor Hunter? Councillor Khan? So I'm going to go to page 1 with regard to Lockmaster Meadows subdivision. I've been speaking to this community development coordinator and representative of Edwardsburg Development. So I believe that there's still a fair amount of work to be done there to bring that subdivision to the construction stage. But my understanding is that the actual development work may not take place during this calendar year. And it doesn't look like it's possible anyway. The other thing that I wanted to bring to the attention of the staff and also the council is that there's some issue there, and I've been talking to our representative on Rideau St. Lawrence. There's some issue there with regard to whether that area, that geographic area, would be serviced by Ontario Hydro or Rideau St. Lawrence Holdings, of which we are an owner. And the representative, or the developer's representative, has been told by both of those entities that no, it's not our responsibility, it's his responsibility. Now, the interesting thing about that is that they got that answer from Ontario Hydro, which is the entity which would normally be stepping up to the plate, claiming those customers or those future customers for their own account. So the long and the short of it is that I will be putting our representative on the Rideau St. Lawrence Board of Directors as the contact point for this developer. And I think that we've come to a mechanism to get this sort of logjam straightened out. The next question, and that was more of a comment than a question, but I just want everybody to be aware of it. The next one is Go ahead.
If I may, Mr. Mayor, just to elaborate a little bit more on that, with respect to the hydro, the Rideau St. Lawrence area is what would have been the Village of Cardinal limits, but there's certainly maybe the possibility to amend that service area agreement to service that subdivision.
Right.
And I believe that either the developer has been in contact with some representatives from Rideau St. Lawrence on
Okay.
that regard.
And this particular geographic area is right on the boundary of the old Village of Cardinal limits.
It is.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one I'm going to look at is still on page 104, which is the filing of the FIR. And so now I'm told here in this report that we have received the final information that we needed from Rideau St. Lawrence. And so my question through the CAO to the treasurer, has the accounting firm then released their audit opinion?
Through the chair, yes, the auditors have provided a clean statement with no draft mark, and the audit has not changed from the council saw the draft statements previously.
Okay, so now we do have a final copy of the audit report and of the financial statements.
Correct.
Okay, so I'd just like to request a copy of the financial statements for my files. That ties up one more loose end. I do have a couple of other questions, if I can just get to them now. Well, I think I'm going to bring up a couple of other things in my mayor's report rather than bring them up here in your report, Mr. CAO. So the one thing that I did want to draw to your attention, though, is the Newport drain, because after the engineer's report was received, Councillor Dillabaugh and I were called to an area just west of Edison Road where there appears to be a discrepancy between what's on the ground or in the ground, if I can put it that way, and what appears in the engineer's report. And at some point, I think that will have to be reconciled within the work plan. And I think that's about it for now. Okay, so Councillor Dillabaugh, you have the motion to accept the CAO's report.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and second by Council Cameron that West Valley Council receives the CAO's administration report as presented.
Okay, and I'd like to call the question. Those in favor? Aye. Motion is carried. And so now I'm at item number 13, which is council inquiries or notices of motion. Anyone have anything to bring forward there? Councillor Hunter.
I have one inquiry. Some reports that our patching has been complete. What are priorities or what we're going to do on Armstrong Road? There's the potholes and stuff are terrible on that road. Not really safe to drive a tool trailer down. Tools end up all on the floor.
So I'm assuming, Councillor, you had the email that we all got from the residents of, or some residents of Armstrong Road?
No, I didn't get that. I didn't get it.
Oh, okay. So we're not too sure exactly how that got circulated, but I did circulate that email, which complained about what you're talking about. I did circulate it to the CAO and also to Mr. Shaw. And I'm just going to be bringing it up in my report here, but I guess not to put words in your mouth, Councillor, but I guess what you're asking is there something in the plan to deal with the patching?
Well, basically, we'll fill them up and raise it off and do something with the camp that way.
To Have you been on it, Councillor Hunter?
Well, I've been on it lots of times.
No, lately?
I avoid it now. My road through our quarry is a lot better than going back through there.
So the point is clearly that the surface treating didn't stand up. And I guess the issue is how much of the damage to the surface treatment was caused by these heavy industrial, heavy agricultural carriages that are transversing the road. I've heard about them several times. Is it a continuing thing? I thought it was a temporary thing.
Temporary thing in the spring there when it shouldn't have been going. So
Were there half load restrictions on the road at that time? Do you know? Okay.
The base is basically the base is in the road.
So we surface treated it with a poor base. Okay, so I read someplace, and I think it was from the correspondence that I had from the from Mr. Shaw today, that the staff is bringing forward a report in July. Is that correct, Mr. Shaw? Correct. Okay, so I think we'll just have to wait to see what comes forward from the staff. They are aware of the problem, and I think they are aware that it is a little bit more serious than just fixing potholes.
Well, it's just we paved a couple of sections there last year, and at least they're running spots are smooth now. So
CAO lens.
Oh, sorry.
Through the mayor, no, I just wanted to indicate that we are aware of the situation, and we'll be looking at bringing forward some options in July for a longer term solution there.
And one other thing to bring forward, the inquiry, maybe we could do something with it. The deputy mayor and I both attended the healing center planting and weeding today that are down there, and the biggest trouble they have with it right now is trying to keep them open, because there's a lot of wild parsnip in it coming up. South Nation can't transport equipment that far to mow it. They've been up and they've hired some mowing done, but they're just not able to get it. They've relied on a couple of volunteers to come and try to mow it. And I wondered if there was any chance that maybe through our recreation department with your mowers that we could go in and do some mowing in there. South Nation Christian would be more than willing to meet with them and show them where to mow. They don't want it all mowed, it's just basically around the outside. They're going to weed areas, but it needs, the only way they can get rid of the wild parsnip is mow it, because it's a healing center and they can't spray in there. So if worst comes to worst, they have to figure out some way to get rid of the outside area, but the center area, the pathways and stuff. And they've taken the stones all away. They said the stones are all moved. No stones, they had any stone there is to put up against the trees, but he said he'd be more than willing to come and be there when the first time or so, if we were willing to go in and do a little mowing, he'd be there and show them where to mow and what areas he wanted mowing. Like, it's not a big area.
Okay, so
half an hour, maybe maximum of mowing.
okay, so before we put the facilities manager on the spot or the CAO, is this a job? And I'm relatively familiar with the site. I've been on the site and looked it over a couple of times. Is this a job for the type of mowers that we would have in our recreation department, or is it a job for our roadside mower?
I think it's more a recreation department. They've brush hogged it all down a number of times. This is just basically now to get it cut down low enough, because the brush hog mowers, I'm sure go over it. They won't cut the wild parsnip off clean. They just take the tops off it. Everybody knows if cut a top off wild parsnip, some blue people think, well, it's dead. Well, it's not. It'll still dry down with seeds. So it's a type that needs a type of a Kubota type mower that's actually going to chop it up and kick it down before it can grow up 3 feet high and get into bloom. Pathways
They're asking for volunteers and any high school students come into weed and stuff, they can give them their volunteer hours, sign for a day for them to come in and volunteer, but they're really shy about asking high school kids to come in and volunteer when they got to walk through on get in contact with it. So.
Okay, so to the CAO, so Mr. Grant, I'm sure you're aware that we have a really good working relationship with South Nation. We have had for quite a number of years. This is probably the first time that you've heard this request, or have you heard it before?
No, this is new to me, but we can maybe have a conversation with the Civic Nation representatives and get a little better.
So can we leave it with your?
If you could leave it with staff to follow up and try to get a better idea.
Is that acceptable, Councillor? We'll just
talk with Chris, he's the region forester.
Yeah.
That's in charge of it there. And that's what he.
It's a question of getting the right equipment onto the job.
Yeah, I don't think I could have a better idea of the cost factor of it. I'd say half hour, maybe an hour the first time there to no actually, but basically it's just
Okay, so we'll leave that with staff. Now, are there anything else coming forward here? I had something to bring forward. I was going to bring it as an inquiry. Yes, I think I will. So this is an inquiry that I had over the weekend. I didn't check it out at all. I was just asked. First of all, it was told to me that the dehumidifier at the ingredient center doesn't operate to the advantage of the people that are using the walking track. So is it true that the dehumidifier is not operative at this point in time? That's the first question. Try to get my facts straight here. Is the dehumidifier operational or not? Through the CAO.
It is operational. It's not on 24/7. We keep it at, we do at a certain level. If the level stays at that, then they don't come on. If it's required, then it kicks on.
Is it set at a percentage, humidity percentage?
Yes, it is. And I don't know what percentage that is off the top of my head, but it definitely is. It was on last week in the morning one day. It's not, and it definitely is not on every day. But
okay.
It is very comfortable to watch.
Okay, so this was in the form of a sort of a complaint. So
yeah, he spoke to us.
Pardon?
He spoke to staff, the individual.
Oh, did he? All right, so you're aware of that.
Yes.
Oh, okay, all right. Then I don't want to be duplicating things over twice. Okay, so I think that's about it for my inquiries, except I do have one notice of motion that I'll be bringing it forward. We get 10 minutes to write it. We have had quite an ongoing discussion with the owner of the Johnstown Motel concerning an issue that he has with the township, and been trying to stick handle this for the better part of 6 months now. And so I've spoken to Mr. Grant about it several times, and it's a question of, seems to have a lot of loose ends. So the only way I can think to bring it to a head is by putting a notice of motion forward, and I'll just serve notice of motion now that I will intend to bring something forward at the Admin Finance Committee meeting to see if I can bring an end to this issue, because I know that the owner of the Johnstown Motel has been phoning me almost on a weekly basis here, and there is a lot of concern there, and I'd like to try to get it resolved. So that's my notice of motion, and if nobody else has any inquiries or notice of motion, I'm going to move on. And the next item is the mayor's report, and I do have quite a number of things to report on. So first of all, and I did report this at the Port Management Committee meeting, but I also reported at this public meeting. I was very pleased to be able to attend the port on Saturday, June the 18th, for the second visit of the Ocean Explorer. and to welcome the ship to the port for its second visit and to hand out to the visitors as they arrived and boarded their buses, the Port of Johnstown pins. And gosh, it's amazing to me, little tiny pin the size of your thumbnail, but if everybody doesn't get one, the organizers sure hear about it. But luckily enough, Mr. Daly had given me enough that we were able to get them to everybody. But also had an opportunity to speak to the captain of the ship and just have him kind of explain for me where the Port of Johnstown fits in with the other ports that he had visited on the Great Lakes during the month or so that he's been gone. And quite happy to find out that that he kind of found the Port of Johnstown a very user-friendly port. It was easy to get into and out of. And he liked our walls. He liked everything that we had to offer. So that'll stand us well. And the ship was then departing on June the 18th to go to Montreal and then onward, I think, to Greenland, Ireland, Iceland, and Norway. But they will be back again. I think it's in late August. So I think other than the fact that the ship said, the captain said, my ship, she doesn't like the locks. The locks, they scratch my ship. So that was the one thing, that one complaint that he had. But I do think we'll see them back in the Great Lakes. The second thing I want to just bring up is the discussion that we started back on November the 24th. Actually, we started it earlier than November, but the discussion we started back in 2020 concerning the needs for one of our existing port customers has a need for land to expand the operations that they presently leased land at the port. So these folks are in a very expansionary mode and they would like to get started on something. We did propose a piece of land to them, and then we kind of got sidetracked trying to enhance the size of that piece of land by discussions with Prysmian. Now, Prysmian has now completed their major project, and I'm in a position now of trying to reopen the discussions with them to see if they would free up a small piece of land for this other company. And I'm tying that in with the fact that Prysmian has now opened their distribution center, and I've ordered what I'm going to call a souvenir in recognition of the fact that they've invested $7 million actually in the construction of that regional distribution center. They've moved their entire distribution operation from Brantford to Johnstown. And I did want to meet with Mr. Edwards, the plant manager, to convey township congratulations and present him with a small souvenir. So hasn't given me a date yet for that meeting, but I'll let council know if and when he provides me with a date. But I will as well be bringing forward a recommendation to council on behalf of our existing corporate citizen that is trying to expand from Johnstown, from the port. Next thing I want to report to council, and I think it's now public information as of the special county council meeting last week, is that we have now received the tender bids for the Mapleview Lodge construction. Now, the tender bids for the actual construction, and of course there are a lot of other costs in addition to the actual construction of this 192-bed long-term care home. But the tender bids for the construction came in $10 million over our estimated smallest budget. And that's public information. And I think it's also public information that the United Counties and our staff are working very hard with the low tender company to try to find ways to bring that project in closer to budget, but I'm not sure how much closer we'll get. So that's just information for council. Item number 4, I did extend congratulations to Minister Clark on his recent re-election and on his recent reappointment to cabinet. So just want you to know that that's done. And then the last issue that we've discussed at a couple of places is what exactly will be our positioning for the international plowing match. So the dates of the plowing match have been set. They coincide right exactly with the soybean harvest. And as you heard from the general manager of the port, it's unlikely that he will have any staff available to provide any assistance to any kind of a presence at the international plowing match. We had hoped to be able to sort of amalgamate the township and the port into the United Counties Showcase. The folks that are organizing the international plowing match really don't want us to be there. They want us, i.e. either the port or the township, to purchase a separate exhibition spot at 1,000 or 2,000 or whatever the case may be, which would make us a sort of a standalone exhibit. Now, Ann Weir is still trying to work her way around this issue, but correspondence that she received today and forwarded to me, it looks to me like the organizers of the plowing match are kind of digging in their heels saying, no, we won't allow the township and the port. And by the way, Ingredient is also interested, and so is Greenfield. We won't allow them to be part of the United Counties Showcase. We want them to purchase their own spaces. So those discussions are ongoing, although I must admit that I have not personally had any discussions with the chair of the committee. He insists that he is interested in carrying on those discussions with those three parties, but I've never been party to that discussion. So I don't know what he's talking about. And I challenged him at that when he appeared at the county council meeting. And I thought when we left the county council meeting that everything had been left very clear, but it appears not. So I understand now through the CAO to Mr. Spencer that there is a meeting tomorrow being convened by Ann Weir, which is part of the visioning exercise that she's trying to put together to see how the township wants to position itself at the international plowing match. And I think there are some concepts coming forward. Touch a Truck is one of the things that I remember reading about. So I don't know how those discussions are going to go tomorrow. And I don't know how to provide Mr. Spencer with any kind of direction for that meeting tomorrow, because we as a township have not decided, other than we'd like to kind of do something together with the port, we've not decided to what extent we want to be involved here, either financially or in a presence. But I didn't want to just raise with council one comment that was raised with me as an aside at the county council meeting or following the county council meeting. And the comment went something like this. I had made it clear during the presentation from the chair of the plowing match that we had hoped to be part of the United Counties Showcase. And the side comment that was made to me, what's wrong with you guys? You get your entire revenue from the agricultural business in Eastern Ontario. Why are you not putting on at your own expense a big presentation? I didn't answer that. So just to make council aware that those kinds of sentiments do exist in the marketplace. So I'll just leave it at that, because this is not the time or the place to discuss what we're going to do. And I think that discussion will probably come up in a more fulsome manner at the Bin Finance Committee meeting in second Monday in July. So, Councilor, you had questions?
I don't have a question. I just have a comment. If you're on, happen to Google and Facebook this weekend, International Plowing Match finally put up rates for renting sites. That's the first. And I got quite a comment kick out of it when I read it, because I think a 10 by 15 foot space in a tent, some place was it was $5.95 if you booked it before June 15th, and after June 15th, it was $6.85 or something. They didn't post it until yesterday, so like I don't know how you would have booked it before. They didn't tell anybody the rates before then that I ever seen, so, but they do finally have rates out for booking it for around $700 or something like that for a site and an extra if you want power, and extra if you need water, one thing or another. But I think in finance, I'd be quite prepared to see a motion come forward that maybe report in the township or rent two sites side by side and like a 20-foot wide site and set up a display for the port, not us. Together, we own the port, so why we really don't need two volunteers for each
space.
We can space, join them together and space together, put it as a port. And port's an entity of the township anyway, so say,
yeah.
I don't see us paying $2,000 to be a sponsor and pay another $1,500 rent sites after that.
Okay, so just one quick thing that came out of, in response to something you just mentioned, that came out of the correspondence that went back and forth today between Ann Weir and now this is not the chair of the plowing match, it's the person that's responsible from the international plowing match. Her first name is Kathy, but she seems to be the kind of the international plowing match representative.
Kathy Shepherd.
Kathy
Shepherd.
Yes. She seems to be prepared to extend the deadline for purchasing. And I think if I saw it correctly, it's July the 8th, because Ann Weir raised the same issue that you just raised and said, we're putting out our email newsletter tomorrow and your deadline's already passed. So how can people respond? So she did say, well, she'd extend it for whatever period of time it was.
Just off that. They just hired one of my granddaughters got hired to work for them. They don't start until the 12th of July at the office. It's when all the people that they've hired to come in to start doing bookings and registrations.
On the middle of July?
12th of July, when she goes to starts.
Well, I mean, their administrative problems are their administrative problems. Okay, are there any other questions with regard to my report before I ask Deputy Mayor Deschamps to bring forward the motion to receive the mayor's report?
Good.
Yep.
All right, moved by myself, seconded by Councilor John Hunter, the municipal council receives the mayor's report as presented.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions? Those in favor? Okay, motion is carried. Okay, so now we come to item number 15 on the agenda, which is the question period. And we do have now 4 folks in the gallery. Does anyone have any questions with regard or with relating to the agenda this evening? Mr. Beard.
Hello, Barry. The paving partnership on John Road, I noticed, it's pretty obvious that Ingredient has paved in concrete that entranceway to their plant, obviously because of the heavy weight of the traffic. Is it the township's intention in partnership with Ingredient to reinforce that portion of the way the trucks come in that belongs to the township? Because I guess that those asphalt roads are taking a beat.
Okay, so in response to your question, Ingredient brought this project forward to us some weeks ago, and they provided us with 2 options. Well, first of all, they provided us with a map of the area that they intended to rehabilitate. And then they provided us with 2 options as to how it might be done. And the first option was reinforced concrete, and the second option was concrete and paving. And the council, and they, by the way, the 2 options had 2 different price tags associated with them. And Ingredient asked us to partner with them on a 50-50 basis. And they would be lead. They would do the design, they would do the tendering, and they would supervise the work. So our council decided to go with the more expensive option even though we were paying 50%, and try to get a more solid, more enduring finish job. However, I'm going to tell you that our staff recommended that we not go with the reinforced concrete, because if we get into problems with sewer and water infrastructure that is underneath that, to dig it up is going to be a major problem. But in any case, the job is now complete as it sits. They've completed the job on the area that they originally intended to rehabilitate. The streets are back open again. And I know what you're saying, because there is a part on the east side on John Street, which is definitely our jurisdiction, which was not included in the original project. So if the intent of your question is, what are we going to do with our section? I don't know whether our staff has had an opportunity to review that and have a recommendation or not. I'll just put that question to Mr. Grant.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The designated truck route into the village and into the plant, that's typically a county road in that particular end of it. So we are certainly communicating with the county on those portions.
Now, I think the portion that Mr. Burry, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think the portion that he's referring to is east. It's on John Street, but it's east of the county's responsibility. Am I understanding you correctly?
Frankly, my question wasn't that sophisticated. It's just that obviously the wear and tear imposed by Ingredients trucks goes far beyond Ingredients' own property, which they have now taken care of. And is there a project to get Ingredient to contribute to the strengthening of the roadway? In fact, all the way up the county road, I guess. Maybe that question is a little much for a casual question, and I don't mean to complicate it.
Well, my read of the situation is that they did come right onto county property to do a portion of county property, but not the whole section of John Street beyond their gate entry point.
I see. Thank you.
Other questions?
I have another, as a matter of fact, if you'll bear with me. I heard discussion about roadside weed spraying and also I think roadside wildflower seeding. And I don't need to take up the council's time, but where could I find out more about that?
Where can I
find out more? I don't need a full-on briefing because I'm taking everyone's time, but there is a wildflower seeding program that seeds the roadsides in our township. Is a great thing.
To Mr. Grant, I see that the deputy mayor has some comment.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor, we can certainly forward that information to
Thank you.
Harris and get a little more information in that regard.
Are there other questions from the gallery? Mrs. Anderson.
Mr. Mayor, I was wondering how the progress is on the lights on Charlotte Street, how that's going.
Okay, well, it wasn't on tonight's agenda, but I think that will be coming up at the Admin Finance Committee meeting, which will be 2 Mondays from now. I can't remember the date. Can you help me with the date?
Yeah, it'll be July 11th.
July the 11th. It'll be coming forward then. It was scheduled for an earlier meeting and got dropped off that agenda and moved to July the 11th.
So what does that mean? Does that mean that there's going to be more discussion or?
Well, that's the meeting where we'll get the staff report.
I see. And is it the staff that decides this?
Well, the staff.
What I'm requesting?
Well, as you recall from the previous meeting, we turned the issue, which was your request for stoplights on Queen and Charlotte. We turned that issue over to staff for investigation and to bring back a report. So they've completed their work now, and they'll come back with a report to council, probably along the lines of suggested locations and costs.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions from the gallery? Okay, if there are no other questions from the gallery, I'm going to move on. Item number 16 is a closed session. We have no closed session this evening. Item number 17 is the confirmatory bylaw. Councillor Hunter, I believe you have the confirmatory bylaw.
Move myself, second by Deputy Mayor Dishon, that the bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution be now passed, signed, sealed, and numbered 2022-47.
Thank you very much. Calling the question on the bylaw. Those in favor?
Aye.
Motion is carried. Thank you. And so now the chair is looking for the motion to adjourn. I think Councillor Kent.
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Hunter that municipal council is now adjourned at 8:06 p.m.
Those in favor? The motion is carried. Thank you.